Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. I want to welcome you all in. Hope you have a great week ahead. Don't forget, tomorrow, Tuesday, September 9th, is Election Day. It's the preliminary municipal election. Tomorrow, Tuesday, September 9th, 2025. At the end of this podcast, we'll get into who I'm going to be voting for and why. After so much stalling by the Wu administration, requesting schedulings and skipping hearings, we finally got the hearing Thursday night, the Boston City Council hearing on mask and cast. I was in the room. It was absolutely hot in there, packed room, media everywhere, and talking to some of the area residents, talking to citizens of Boston. The one big thing that they were adamant on was getting Mayor Wu out. One of the biggest things was that, but we weren't there to talk about Mayor Wu. I mean, what we were there to talk about was mask and cast and what's going on in that area and the surrounding areas, and to listen to the politicians speak, to the citizens speak, the residents speak. It was eye-opening. There's going to be a lot of audio in this podcast because you're going to hear it first here. I know it was Thursday, but here we are Monday morning. You're going to be hearing it here, not from NBC News, Fox 25 News. You're not going to get blips. You're going to get exactly what I heard, and you'll hear it yourself. So let's jump in. So it was docket number 1457, a hearing to discuss a resolution to declare mask and cast in the impacted communities a public safety / public health emergency, and to further recognize the situation as a humanitarian crisis. The Committee on Public Health, Homelessness, and Recovery held the off-site hearing on September 4th, Thursday at 6 p.m. It was at the Hampton Inn and Suites at 811 Mass Ave. To start the meeting, you had Ed Flynn, Erin Murphy, John Fitzgerald, Julia Mejia, Council President Ruth Z., and throughout it you had many city councilors coming and going, but not all were there. This hearing was scheduled, so there was no excuse for any of them not to be there in such a big topic that we were going to discuss, and for all of them not to be there was a shame. The mayor herself did not show up. She sent her team. It was tough in that room. It was tough to hear some stories up there, tough to hear from the politicians themselves, some that struggle with addiction or had struggled with addiction and are now in recovery, and to hear from some of the residents and business owners that are going out of business that this is just out of control and enough's enough. John Fitzgerald opened the meeting, our District 3 city councilor who does a great job. And throughout the whole hearing, he had to warn people to tamp it down, to let the speakers speak, let them conduct the council business. But it was just a absolute raw emotion in that room, and people just wanted to be heard.
I want to stress that 2 minutes to testify. So if you have signed up, please understand that we have a lot of people here, and we're going to try and get through everybody because they all have their right to have their voice heard. So please respect those before you and the person behind you in wanting to make their voice heard.
There was Councilor Fitzgerald letting people know that there's going to be 2 minutes and 2 minutes to speak. But a lot of these people went over, especially the politicians themselves and the residents, because people were just fed up with what they had, what they've been seeing, what they've been hearing from Wu, what she's going to do, campaign promises that she made that she didn't keep. And it just raw, like I said, raw emotion in that room that something I won't forget. But these people were passionate, whether it was the politicians themselves or the residents and business owners. So we're going to get into Ed Flynn. Here's what Ed Flynn had to say.
Cast. This is an issue I've worked on for the last, not just 8 years, 16 years. I was a probation officer at Superior Court and supervised the homeless community. I know this area as well as anyone. But what is really happening here is a crisis. I think we all can agree on that. That's the resolution is simple, but what is difficult is how we move forward. But one thing we can't tolerate is open drug dealing and open drug use. About their experiences. One woman who was telling me that she called the police today, someone was dealing drugs in her backyard. That was just several hours ago. Another person was telling me there was a scarf folding up and someone was sleeping there. These are quality of life issues. And it's our job as city councilors to represent you, to hear from you. The solutions to this crisis you're not going to find the solutions at City Hall. We're going to find them in this room for residents. You have better recommendations on how to solve this crisis than we do. The people of the South End in Roxbury and Dorchester and South Boston, they're very compassionate people. We all support people getting into recovery, into detox, into programs. But we also want to make sure residents are treated with respect and dignity. And they're not. Residents, in my opinion, are living in fear.
So there you have City Councilor Ed Flynn. He's saying and admitting it is a crisis. And one of the things that I just couldn't understand was the thing we can't tolerate is open drug dealing and open drug use. To me, that's just a no-brainer. Anyone down there selling drugs, anyone down there shooting up drugs in public within view of a cop or selling drugs should be arrested for breaking the law. Enough's enough. That's a no-brainer. But what I did like was when he said solutions you're not going to find at City Hall. You're going to find them with you, the residents. And he openly stated that the residents of the South End and surrounding areas are living in fear. And that's going to be a topic that you hear throughout some of these testimonies. A lot of people testified, like I said, politicians, local activists, local people from the neighborhood, South End, Roxbury, Dorchester. I can't play them all here, so these are just some of the clips I thought were quite interesting. And then next up you had Erin Murphy, who is the city councilor at large, who I think does an unbelievable job, and I've said it before, she eats, sleeps, breathes, and lives Boston 24/7. There's not a better city councilor citywide than Erin Murphy. She's getting my vote, I can tell you that. But let's hear what she had to say.
Representing all of the neighborhoods across the city. The South End, Dorchester, where I live, Roxbury, Andrew Square, South Boston, downtown, you deserve the same thing everyone else deserves. And that's what I feel, and I've been seeing it get worse over this last, say, 6 months, a year, where you don't feel like you're being heard and your quality of life is not what it should be. Somebody who is in recovery myself, and 11 years ago, I've shared this story before, I do just want to kind of level set. You continue to talk, that's fine. But you can hear me. I'll continue. There's no no.
So
11 years ago, when the bridge closed down, my son was in a bed on Long Island. So I knew then, and I've been at Mass and Cass since then. Have everyone here. I wish there were 12 councilors with us here tonight. Maybe.
And you hear her there. She talks about being in recovery herself. Then she was interrupted by protesters shouting, "Come outside, come outside." They were frustrated because the room was so small and they weren't able to get inside. But with due time, everybody was heard on the mic. Everybody got their chance to speak. It was a small room, but again, because of Mayor Wu's stalling tactics, they had to have it outside the chambers of the city council. And they had to have it where they could have it. And this is the only place that could accommodate it. Yes, it was a small room, but it was very productive, and a lot of people were heard. And also in that, you could hear Erin talking about her son, who was also on a bed in Long Island when the bridge closed, and that she's been down at Mass and Cass for 11 years now. And then she took a little shot at the rest of the council that she wished the whole council would have been there. And that's one of my things, is that you're a Boston city councilor. You're getting paid to do the city's work. Show the fuck up. Then up next we had Julia Mejia, who I thought she did a great job. She also spoke about some personal things herself. Everyone that got up, everyone had a personal story to tell. And it was touching and moving to hear them speak. Very personal. These are city councilors, and you don't expect to hear personal stories like that. But this issue at Mass and Cass has affected everybody, not just in Boston, but in the Commonwealth itself. So let's hear what Julia had to say.
That's right. I am so grateful to my colleague for creating space right where all of the action is happening, so that folks who have not been able to experience it could see what it looks like to live and or work in this area. And I think that for those folks alone, I lost a cousin to overdose, and I have a niece right now that's locked up because of this situation, right? So I am not far removed from this conversation, so I'm able to understand it from both sides. And that's why it's important for us to understand that when you all are showing up, right, you pay for our salaries. At the end of the day, we respond to your needs, not vice versa. And that's why it's so important for us to utilize this opportunity to not just listen for the sake of listening, because we've had these hearings too. We've been here before. We've done this.
That was Julia Mejia. She is a citywide city councilor. But what sort of threw me off is, she said the space right here where all the action is happening, for people to be able to experience it all. It's like it's a carnival, like it's a carnival ride, like an experience. There's no experience. Those people down there are suffering. A lot of them, unfortunately, are in the throes of addiction, and they need help. And it goes back to meeting people where they're at. She did get very, very personal when she talked about a cousin that had died to an overdose and a niece that's locked up. But what spoke to me was that we respond to your needs, not vice versa. That we have been here before. Yes, we have been here before. This is an ongoing issue, 10 years plus now. And it's time to find a solution and clean up the area. Mayor Wu always touts Boston is the safest city in America. That is not true. That is absolute BS. It's just another campaign slogan. Next up, we're going to hear from City Council President Ruth Z on what she has experienced and what she gets personal as well. Again, everyone gets personal up there. Everyone tells their story. Everyone tells you how they've been affected by mass and Cass and the issues there. It's tough to hear, but it's what people need to hear, and what we need to do is fix this. So here's what Ruth Z had to say.
For you, not just as an elected official, but what you experienced. Many of us, myself, a few months ago, spent time roaming all of my meetings looking for a friend who struggles with this issue. So this is personal for a lot of us as we try to solve a really complicated and complex issue. It's dehumanizing for the folks who are out there, and it's dehumanizing for the residents, for folks who have to open their door and not know if you're going to see a needle or defecation or a person. It's a quality of life issue, and it's an issue that affects so many of our residents and so many of our neighborhoods, and it requires a lot of intentionality and a lot of resources. So I understand deeply the frustration of the residents. I understand the frustration and the sadness of the parents.
There's the city council president talking about how she had to cancel all of her meetings, go down and look for a friend who is active in addiction down at Mass and Cass. Just imagine, though, that that's a friend of yours, a sister down there, a brother down there, a cousin, an aunt, an uncle. Everybody in the city of Boston has had someone that is either active in addiction, that has passed from addiction. This isn't anything new, but this is something that we've struggled with as a city to get a hold of, Mass and Cass. So we need to all do better, and we need to be better, not just for our neighbors that are doing right, that are doing good, but also for our neighbors that are active in addiction. Up next we had Santana. Let's hear, he's a Boston City Councilor. Let's hear what he had to say.
Right. As many of you know, my number one priority has been our young ones, our youth, and trying to represent the next generation. And as Council President said, it's heartening that there are parks, there are areas in our communities that our families and that our youth can't use because of the crisis that we're seeing here in the city of Boston.
He's talking about the youth, and he's a Boston City Councilor at large. I'm not a big fan of him, but that's besides the point. He talks about the kids not being able to use the parks because of the issues, drug abuse, all sorts of open and lewd and gross conduct going on at parks. So it hits home, kids now not being able to play in playgrounds because of this issue. It's a quality of life issue, and it's just tough to think that 10 years later, we're still on the same path of turning a blind eye and throwing everything at the wall and nothing's working, and just letting this go on day in and day out, 24/7, 365. It reminds me of Amsterdam from The Wire, where they came up with the idea to let the drug addicts and drug dealers to a certain zone where they could go, just like Mass and Cass, and do their drugs and sell their drugs, and total anarchy is all over the place and nothing's done. Similar to what's going on down there. You can brush them down the street, you can move them around from corner to corner, but until we clean that area up and show them that this isn't going to happen anymore, it's still going to go on day in and day out. We need to stop, think, and do the right thing down there, not just for the residents, but also the addicts as well. Next up, we had State Rep John Moran, who represents the 9th Suffolk District. He lives in the South End, and he also serves the South End, Roxbury, and Dorchester. He talked about many issues that he sees there and many issues that he's tried to resolve, but still, here we are, banging our head off the wall, trying to reinvent the wheel. So let's hear what he had to say.
As the only elected official on any level who calls the South End home, the spillover from Mass and Cass strikes a raw nerve every single day. My State House district covers the majority of the Mass and Cass area, including the Copley Square area, up to Nubian Square, to Orchard Gardens, to Andrew Square in South Boston. But I can no longer look myself in the mirror if I run into a constituent on the street like I did this week who has young 2 kids and they're moving out of the South End because they no longer feel safe. So to sum it up, today I stand with my neighbors in saying enough is enough, and more action needs to happen right now. Thank you very much.
There's Senator John Moran. He's saying he calls South End home. It strikes a nerve, a raw nerve every day he steps out of his house. He's talking about constituents moving out because it's no longer safe, and enough is enough. It's about 10 years that enough's been enough, you know? Senator Nick Collins said being out of compliance with the state's sanitary code at this stage is evidence enough we are in a state of emergency, whether it's discarded needles in parks or blood and human waste on sidewalks and people's doorsteps. It is all unsanitary and out of control. It's definitely out of control, but like I said, going on 10 years now with no solution in sight. We'll see what's next. Up next, we're going to get into the residents. We have ex-Senator Diane Wilkerson. She was talking about some stuff that you wouldn't believe it unless you were there and you heard it. So let's get into what Diane Wilkerson had to say.
Tonight it would be, where do you think they go when you disperse them? And how is that a plan? I want to thank the Councilor Fitzgerald, Councilor Flynn, Councilor Murphy, Councilor Mejia for constantly raising this issue in public. And we all want to be respectful, but you know what? You can't have this conversation without it being political. The reality is that none of this matters if you go into the polls and vote for the very people who blocked us and put us in this room instead of in City Hall. While we're sitting there having coffee and tea, there's a rustle of activity, and the next thing I know, I see the police come in and go to the elevator. I don't want her to get nervous, so I don't say anything. A few minutes later, I see the coroner bag come in the lobby. And then I see the stretcher. While I sat there with her, someone OD'd in the bathroom. And the next thing I know, the stretcher comes by us. I'm talking to her so she won't look behind her. Someone died while I was here having tea. OD'd in that bathroom. That's why you have to get a key. This is real, people. This is very real. And I want to say this to you. To all of the people first, this isn't about the South End. This is about Boston.
She gets up there. She thanks the councilors, especially a few of them, for constantly raising this issue in public. And then she proceeds to say, nothing matters if you go into the ballot box and vote for the same people that put us in this room and not in City Hall where we believe. Then she goes into a story, a personal story, about she has a friend up from Georgia that came to visit her where they went and had tea. And in the same hotel that we were in, someone overdosed and died. And she says, this is real. This isn't about the South End. It's about Boston. And it's so true and rings true to what she had to say. And she had to witness someone that died while having tea with a friend from Georgia. You know, up next, we got a short little clip from Frank Baker on what he had to say.
Facilitate those sorts of things. The party has to stop. It's either arrest or Section 35. We've got to get away from the housing first sort of thing. Housing after people are sober for a year.
Frank says the party has to stop. Arrest or Section 35. Housing after you've been sober for over a year. No doubt about it, housing should definitely be given after you've been sober for a year. If you're going to give people in the throes of addiction housing, it's not going to stop them. So definitely rehab when you've been sober for a year, definitely housing next. I'm all for that. And now we're going to get into, I'm just going to let it run, and you can hear it for yourself, the citizens of Boston, the residents of South End, some of them, get into their testimony, and you can hear it. It's all raw, and it touches a nerve. But everybody is affected by this.
So
let's hear
you
what
don't
they
know
have to
what
say.
may come out of it. But I am feeling all of you. I am feeling the energy, the frustrations, because I am you too. Thank you, Ed Flynn. Seriously, I know you're going to get, and all the other counselors, you're going to feel a lot of the frustrations. It's going to come onto you. But our mayor spent like, what, $12 million to disassemble Mass and Cass? And look where we are. We're worse than where we were.
And understand this. I'm glad that you guys are coming here, but I think it's already too late. The damage is done.
I understand your frustration because I'm a parent too. So when I first got in this room, I was you, sitting there pissed to tell my kid she can't go down the slide because somebody was just defecating her. City had no maintenance schedule for Clifford Park. That's just a piece of what the frustration is from kids from Orchard Gardens who are watching people not only shoot up, but also, again, from her video, that clearly shows you masturbation is real.
And I'm going to go a little deeper, a couple of years old. The media can go fact check me. You go look for the Freedom of Information Act. 2 years ago, the mayor's office reached out to the commissioner's office under Superintendent Long and said, do not arrest on Mass Ave. So what are you supposed to do? You're going to put up with some more nonsense and be told we're going to fix it? It's a campaign year running for re-election. And I'll tell you right now, I'm voting for change. I'm voting for change at the mayor's office. I'm voting for change on the council. And if you people want to see change, I suggest that you vote change. Get out there next week, get out there in November. Again, I'm here to support my neighbors in the current mayor made a campaign promise 4 years ago to clean up Mass and Cass. Well, how much bullshit do you want to listen to now for another campaign promise? How much crap do we throw against the wall and hope it sticks? Because it's not. Her new plan about the new offices coming out onto the street is not going to work, folks.
No, it's not. I lost a nephew 4 years ago from substance abuse. Why? Because Mass and Cass. Yeah. He tried Long Island Shelter and he tried a bunch of other places, and Mass and Cass killed him. My other nephew survived, and he's finally clean at 55 years old. But 40 of those years, he was addicted to heroin. It strikes home for me. What drives me crazy is when we moved here in 1986, people said, you know what? That area's always been like that. No, it wasn't. We had the L. We had prostitution, we had petty crime. We did not have what's going on today. We lived it. He's a big guy. He's been chased down Mass Ave. Nothing scares him. He's scared. He's run into like a CVS in broad daylight because of Mass and Cass. Everywhere. It's called push-pull. Enough is enough. There is solutions. Long Island Shelter will never happen.
Thank you, Andy.
Shattuck will never happen. It's time to find a solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Those were some of the residents you're hearing from. People that are frustrated. One saying the mayor spent $12 million to disassemble Mass and Cass, but here we are $12 million later and we're still at a standing point. We're still here currently. The same problems we faced 10 years ago. Another one that says it's too late, the damage is done. She owns a restaurant that's connected to the Hampton Inn, and she's talked about having to pay her own employees $5,000 out of pocket each month just to keep them employed because of Mass and Cass, because of everything that's going on down there. And then another one, Domingos De Rosa, who's running for mayor, pissed that kids can't go to the park. People are shooting up and masturbating in the parks as well, as little girls and boys are playing baseball and softball. Absolutely ridiculous. Another guy says that 2 years ago, Mayor Wu called the top brass at BPD and told them do not arrest on Mass Ave. Wow. If that's true. He said you could record check it as well. And then he talked about voting for change. He said campaign promised to clean up Mass and Cass, but we're still here going through the same problems 10 years later. And then a lady who got up and she used to run the South End Neighborhood Association down there. She lost a nephew and another nephew is now sober. The one nephew died from a drug overdose and the other one is now clean and sober. She talked about how she's lived it, that when she bought there years ago, people told her that's the way that area has always been. Well, she said no, she's lived it. That's absolute bullshit. Her son was chased down Mass and Cass, and then she says, enough is enough. Time to find a solution. That's just some stuff from the politicians, people of Boston, the residents of Boston. People are frustrated. People are fed up. People are scared. It's time to do something about it. I don't know if you guys heard Wednesday night, the mayor, less than 24 hours before the hearing Thursday, she released a new plan for Mass and Cass. We will get into that plan shortly, but some things I do want to highlight from the meeting. Boston Public Health Commission said they give about 80,000 needles a month. That's on average about 20,000 needles a week. A lady from the Health Commission mentioned that some people shoot up as many as 14 times a day. That's 14 times a day they shoot up. 20,000 needles a week, 80,000 needles a month. We need to do something. So Mayor Wu has a new plan, and we're going to get into it. I'm going to break it down how I saw it. Mass and Cass. What's the city's new plan? Mass and Cass has long been Boston's most visible intersection of the opioid crisis, homelessness, and public safety concerns. And in September 2025, Mayor Michelle Wu's administration rolled out a significant update to its citywide response. Let's break it down. What's the big picture? The city's message is clear. Outdoor substance use is illegal and unacceptable, no matter the neighborhood. The new plan blends enforcement, treatment access, and neighborhood cleanups to shut down encampments and push drug activity off the streets. Enforcement, but with a public health twist. The Boston Police Department has made 467 drug-related arrests in 2025, an 85% increase over last year. Coming out, there's going to be 100 new officers, and they're going to be deployed to hot zones like the South End, New Market, and Nubian Square. Out of those 100 officers, how many are going to stay? 100 new cops being put into the hot zone of the South End, New Market, and Nubian Square doing a walk and beat 5 or 6 days a week. I don't know if that's going to work. And then there's a new bike patrol. Real-time surveillance cameras and 149 upgraded streetlights in problem corridors like Warren and Washington. Compassionate diversion, not just crackdowns. But this isn't just about arrests. The city's Coordinated Response Team, or CRT, is redirecting people away from jail and into recovery programs using voluntary treatment, judicial diversion, and when necessary, court-ordered Section 35 commitments for those in crisis. I think Section 35 commitments should be used a lot more, but we'll see what happens. From March through September, CRT worked weekly with 55 individuals, secured 297 transports to treatment or reunification, and placed 32 people into court-mandated care. Next, public health taking the lead. The Boston Public Health Commission is expanding treatment pathways. Over 785 people were transported to detox and recovery programs. 76 unhoused individuals were reunited with family. Needle pickup operations now run from 5 a.m. to midnight, 7 days a week. They've also cut back on needle distribution hours in response to community concerns. New partnerships and strategies. A new partnership with the Gavin Foundation provides on-demand treatment beds and rapid transportation. Weekly case management. Hub tables bring police, outreach workers, health providers, and state officials together to coordinate care, person by person. And crucially, the city has instructed all outreach groups to end outdoor tent and mail distribution. Instead, people in need must be directed to authorized indoor programs. Decentralizing services away from Mass and Cass. There's a big focus on spreading services out, not clustering them in one neighborhood. That means funding new outreach teams in other neighborhoods, placing substance use navigators in community health centers, and even launching public health vending machines in new areas. What's next? The city's saying this isn't a one-and-done fix. The strategy will keep evolving up with weekly meetings, bi-monthly public updates, and coordination across police, public health, and judicial systems. Mayor Wu is betting big on this three-part approach. Enforce the law, expand treatment, and decentralized services. So, is this the breakthrough Boston's been waiting for, or is it just another cycle in the long-running struggle at Mass and Cass? As always, we want to hear from you. What's working, what's not, and what do you think the city should try next? Don't forget, the municipal election is Tuesday, tomorrow, September 9th, 2025. The election will determine the field of candidates whose names will appear on the official ballot for the general municipal election on Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. Voters will determine the top 2 candidates for the office of mayor, the top 2 candidates for each district councilor race, and the top 8 candidates for at-large city councilor. There will be no preliminary municipal election for city council in districts 3, 6, 8, and 9. I'm going for Kraft for mayor, Erin Murphy for city councilor at large, Julia Mejia for city councilor at large, Frank Baker for city councilor at large, and that last one that I'm willing to give a chance to is Will Anua. He's brand new. Let's see what he can do. Let's see what he has to say. And again, I appreciate everybody listening. This was a podcast that I wanted to get out. I know it was Thursday night, but doing the updates and sending everything and getting everything up and running and getting this out, it's not as easy as one thinks. I'm a one-man show. So it's all falls on me. But here we are Monday morning, and I'm getting it out to you. I hope you guys all have a great week, and don't forget tomorrow's elections, preliminaries. I hope you guys all have a great week. Peace and love. Peace and love. Uncle Jimmy out.